You are listening to It's Later Than You Think. Hey. I hope you're having a fantastic week. Some exciting news. This is our very first guest episode, and I am so excited to share it with you. This will be one of many in the Fleeting Moments series, where I chat with guests about their passions, hobbies, beliefs, outlook on life, and whatever the hell else we find ourselves chatting about. While these may differ slightly from the cadence and tone of the solo podcast episodes, the message stays the same. We've got one go-round on the globe. Let's enjoy it and make the best of it. My first guest is Jacob Miller, a local musician in the Milwaukee area and all-around busy guy. Jake was kind enough to sit down and discuss his career up to this point, a side project that he's passionate about, and what it's like wearing many different hats. I really hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. All right. My first guest today is Jake Miller.
Hello.
Welcome, Jake.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks so much for being here. We were just talking offline of how long we've known each other, and we couldn't really come up with a good year. I think it's probably 10 to 12 years, maybe.
Yeah, somewhere in there through our mutual friend, Mr. Jeff.
Yeah. When he joined the band, and that's pretty exciting. I don't know if you know this, but I knew of Burgundy before Jeff had joined. One of I'm not sure if he was bassist, but it was Bill Trutchell.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Bill.
Yeah. I am friends with his sister and known her for many years. And so I remember college age going to go see him in the band play.
Yeah, great family. Talented.
How long have you been in Burgundy Ties?
Oh boy. It's over 20 years now. Probably 25.
Okay, so you were in the initial. So I essentially saw you that night too when I saw Bill play.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, so Jake, again, thanks for being here. We're going to chat a little bit about some music, what you currently do, some side projects you're working on, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Cool.
So first is, I know you from the live music scene in Milwaukee. I heard you like music. What led you to play drums? And want to tell us, I know you got a lot of different things going on. So how many bands are you in, and how did you get involved in the industry?
Sure. So, I started music when I was very young. I guess I started appreciating music when I was young. I grew up with a mom who's super into Motown. And I remember from being a very little boy, my parents had a pretty ripping stereo system for what it was at the time. And my mom would just blast, Temptations, and she had an unbelievable record collection too. And so there was always music going on in the house. And my sister recently reminded me of the first time she saw me kind of yank all the pots and pans out of the kitchen, which I'm sure a lot of drummers did, when they're kids. And then, of course, high school and middle school band, and then MTV came out, and I started seeing all these videos and these bands, and I'm like, wow, I want to do that. Like I knew I wanted to do that. And I was a guitar player for a good 9 years before I became a drummer, because in high school that was the cool thing to do, is be a guitar player,
of course.
But eventually I switched over to drums kind of out of force. So one of the bands I was playing with, the drummer was having a baby and decided to kind of pull back from the scene a little bit. And our singer's like, well, does anyone play drums? Do you know anybody? And I was like, I can try. So I bought a drum set and I played for like 4 to 6 hours a day.
Wow.
For like 6 months. and just tried to learn as much as I could. And first show was a little rough, and I've been playing and loving it ever since. So that's kind of how I got into it. I worked in a music store for a long time at Casio Music, the legendary Casio Music in New Berlin. And then projects. Right now, I'm in 8 different bands. 8?
8?
Yeah. Not all of them are as active as others.
Sure.
The 3 main ones, Burgundy Ties, Wapatui, Plainsmen, are kind of the original driven with some covers. And then I'm in a tribute band, a Tom Petty tribute band, a Parliament Funkadelic tribute band, a Grateful Dead band. I just started playing with John Hintz, who you know.
Yep.
With Jeff.
Great
and that's going on now. I'm working on Spoof Fest in April in Milwaukee. We're doing Talking Heads.
Oh, I love it.
And then I do have something coming down the pipeline, but I'm not allowed to talk about it yet. Sure.
Man, so you've got a few things going on.
Yeah, a couple things. You have to stay busy if you want to play. I think, especially in Milwaukee, you have to be involved with a lot of different things if you want to get out there enough.
Now, are your bands, are you part of any, as far as like company, as far as with booking goes? I mean, I'm only familiar with the entertainment company. Mm-hmm. But as far as other, how does that work?
I've worked with some. I have worked with TEC, with Harley Fest, and a couple others. Outside of that, it's all self-booking, self-managed. Okay. I started my own LLC because eventually I started to, do well enough where the government wanted their piece as well. Yeah. So that helped with, being able to balance budgets and expenses, that sort of thing.
Great. Now, I want to switch gears to when you are up on stage. As far as communication goes, I imagine there's a lot more that goes into it than what the person out in the crowd sees and imagines. What is that like? And do you find that's different between bands that you work with, or is it all kind of the same as far as that goes with timing and things like that?
I think there's a base communication with, first of all, the song structure and learning the songs and having rehearsals. Every good band should rehearse and practice together.
Yeah.
And then I think it's important to hang out beyond that as well. So just everyone has a different personality, and everyone has their own body language. And when you're on stage, it definitely is to your advantage to know facial expressions of somebody, because there's subtle cues that you watch for. And after you play with somebody long enough time, you kind of you start to learn to see those without thinking about it, and it becomes extremely intimate. So it's really hard to describe because I don't think there's anything quite like it. I feel like it's an extremely intimate communication. They say music is a universal language, and that's true. And going band to band to band, there is a universal sort of vulnerability. So you're basically relying on everybody else to come together and complete a puzzle. And that vulnerability, makes you very humble, for starters, because you have to do your part to not make a mistake. And then you're also trying to cover somebody else if they make a mistake. And it's a trust. It's a very big trust to perform with other people on stage.
You made some good points there. I love that analogy of the puzzle, getting all those pieces together. And sometimes it's going to be a little more difficult. Maybe there's more puzzles or pieces in this puzzle, or it's not a complete, border, and it's going to be a little bit more challenging. But I think that's a great way to put it. What advice would you have for someone interested in the music industry?
A couple different things. First of all, you be yourself always. Don't pretend to be anybody else. It will not help you. And bring yourself honestly to all the people that you perform with. That will improve that communication that we just talked about. So definitely be yourself. Play with as many people as possible. Play music that you don't necessarily like or listen to.
Okay.
Multiple genres. That will make you a better musician. And then take care of yourself, your health. Stay away from hard drugs. Stay away from things that are bad for you, and they're out there. And for whatever reason, that industry is loaded with opportunity. For some reason, it comes out, and you have to say this is not a good opportunity.
Do you think part of that is just that the late night atmosphere?
Some of it's that. I think a lot of musicians have a very addictive personality.
Okay.
I do. And so you have to be mindful of what you're doing. And when you're not on stage, get rest, take supplement. Over the last few years, I've really increased my supplements. So I'm taking ashwagandha and D3 and K2 and magnesium. Try to eat well, sleep well. I don't sleep a lot, but you should try to sleep well. Definitely. So that's really important. Take care of your body and be mindful of your own addictive personalities.
Sure. That's some good advice as well. Now, side question too is when you're playing with a variety of bands or someone that wants to get into the industry, and I like what you said there about just play everything, play music that you don't love, play music that you are familiar with, and vice versa. But when you're in a band, do you have to love the music or at least enjoy it for the most part that you're playing? Or is it like, hey, this is kind of a job for me to a point where I'm not going to love everything?
That's a great question. It's a really fun job. It's the best job. And I think you can grow to love something. So, and that's kind of part of making it your own as well. So if there's a song idea that somebody has or a song that is desired to be played, and I don't necessarily like it or have never heard it, you can grow to love that. And you can look at ways to make it your own so that you have more fun doing it. If I ever thought that I wasn't having fun anymore, I wouldn't play anymore. It's always fun. And it's always, to me, a good idea to challenge yourself, to go outside of your comfortability, get comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's one of my favorite things because it just makes you a better musician.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's switch gears a little bit off of the music topic. Now, I know in addition to 8 different groups that you're a part of, you also have kind of a little bit of a side hobby as well. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's called Pour for Life. It started, to get very personal here, my sister has MS. She was diagnosed very young. And if you don't know what MS is, or even if you do, it's a very complex disease. It's very hard to manage. And I got to a point where I just wanted to help in some way. And I knew that, I'm not a doctor, and I knew that I don't have a huge amount of money to just donate. So I thought, what can I do? And I've always loved art and painting. And so one day I was replacing my drum heads, and typically, I just recycle them. And I thought, wow, this could be a good canvas. So I started painting on the drum heads. And then I decided, well, maybe this is a way that I can create awareness, create donations. So I just put it out there, and I sold a few paintings right away. And it's been growing ever since. So I get a lot of requests. I've done a couple things for bars in the local area for their decor. And it's all about creating awareness for MS, and all of the proceeds go to the MS organization.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing that. That's really incredible. I knew of what your kind of side hobby was, but I did not know the backstory, and I think that's really amazing. So
yeah,
very cool.
no, she's worth it.
Very cool. Pour for Life. That is POUR for life. Awesome.
Yep, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff.
Perfect. Great. What do you enjoy doing when you're not busy with everything? I don't even know if you could answer that question because you're just busy.
Yeah. I like cooking a lot. So my mom is still a great chef. She taught me how to cook when I was very young. And so I really enjoy good food. I know you can't see me right now from the chest down, but you would tell that I like good food. And I love my dog. I love playing with my dog. I recently got married in October, so thank you. I have a wife now, so that keeps me busy as well. So yeah, spending time with family as much as I can and cooking.
Very cool. Love it. Back to these concerts, because I am intrigued in a couple of these questions. And again, this is, Milwaukee, but, so we're not maybe talking about when you were playing at Madison Square Garden and something crazy happened with 18,000 people or whatever. But what's the craziest thing you've seen happen during a concert that you've been playing?
Oh, boy.
Thing at least that sticks out in your mind that's like, oh, God, I got to tell someone about that later.
Well, I was playing in Pewaukee on the beach. This is years ago, and it was a really windy day. And we were playing on stage during halfway through a song, and I noticed this little old lady in a wheelchair on the sidewalk.
Okay.
And she's kind of by herself. I think she had family nearby, but she's sitting and enjoying the music. And I'm like, oh, that's really sweet. And the wind picked up and started pushing her on her chair towards the street. And, we're all playing and nobody's noticing this. And this little old lady is like helpless in the wind. Eventually hits the curb and takes a spill. And I'm trying my best to communicate with the other guys, like, hey, can you see this? And I'm nodding and I'm, pointing my head over.
Oh, man.
So an ambulance had to come, and you can't stop the show. So, the show must go on, as they say.
Yeah.
And so we're just watching all this happen, and she ended up okay, I think. But
good.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. A windy day for an old lady in a wheelchair. Oh, man.
Well, you guys must have been playing really well, because I'm sure whoever had pushed her down there initially was probably up dancing around. Having a good time.
Yeah. Everyone's just clueless to this sweet little lady getting blown around. So that was wild, and I think she's okay. So.
Good. As far as other musicians go, what are some of the top artists or bands that you've actually seen in concert yourself?
Well, I'm a huge Tom Petty fan, so I was really lucky to see him on his last tour before things went bad. He always puts on a good show, and his music to me is kind of the soundtrack of your life. I mean, when you listen to his music.
Was that the show with Chris Stapleton?
It was, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Were you at that one?
I was not. I only saw Tom Petty once, and I wish it was more, but this was a good lineup too. This was Summerfest. I want to say, I'm not going to be able to quote the year, but 7 or 8, something like that. They played with Pearl Jam.
Oh yeah, I was there as well.
Yeah, so don't.
That actually brings me. I was actually going to say Pearl Jam next at Alpine in October. It was October 8th, I think, or 2nd. It was freezing.
I was at that show in 2000.
Absolutely freezing.
It snowed the day before.
Yeah,
the grass was soaked. I was in the grass.
Okay.
It was a Sunday night. You're right. I think it was the 8th.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it was so cold. And I'll never forget that, because just the the breath vapor coming out of these guys that are trying to throw down on the stage.
That was the tour that Pearl Jam. It was in 2000. I was a sophomore in high school. My mom was not pleased that I was going to a concert at Alpine, on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
They recorded that whole year. That was the tour that they recorded the shows. And I remember listening to that one back, and I don't know if you recall how he started out the show, what he said.
I don't recall the exact line.
It was, "Welcome to the Ice Bowl."
That's so good.
And later on, he then, because he had obviously was trying to stay warm, so he was, taking part in some beverages, but he actually stated, "This is the coldest red wine I've ever drank."
I believe it.
But he also fell over during the show. I don't know if you remember that.
I do. He was probably on his third bottle at that point, just trying to keep his blood thin.
That was
a heck of a show.
We were at that together separately, and then also the Petty and Pearl Jam. So that's very cool.
I don't know. Did Jeff ever tell you about the John Mulaney story?
If he did, I don't recall.
Okay, so basically, we were at Phish together at Alpine.
Oh, and John Mulaney was in front of you, or
he was in front of us. Yeah, he's like 2 rows in front of us, wearing this big Sherpa wool big sweater, stuck out like a sore thumb, just standing there watching Phish. And I'm like, John. I'm trying to scream. Jeff's getting mad at me.
He did tell me that. I recall now that you mentioned that. That's oh man, what a small world there.
Yeah. That was entertaining. I was just watching him the whole time. I'd seen Phish so many times, but
yeah,
I'm like, I'm just going to watch John watch Phish.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That's amazing. Okay, so last question for you. Hypothetical, of course.
Okay.
Let's say music is canceled for life. I don't know why, but it's just no one can play music. No one can listen to music. What does Jake Miller decide to do with his life?
Oh, boy. Honestly, I think I'd probably become a reverend or a priest, because it's the only other occupation I can think of that would get me as close to God as I feel playing music.
I love it.
I can't think of any other thing that I would do, honestly.
Incredible. I mean, you have to enjoy your craft, obviously, when you put in the time that you do. And then not only, quality, but the quantity of, as far as how much it's practice time, it's the amount of groups that you're in. And, you live and breathe it, and you can see the enjoyment. And I don't just say this because I know you, but seeing your passion on stage.
Yeah.
Is incredible. It's just, I look back at those shows when I go see Burgundy Ties, and I think they're all having a really good time up there.
Yeah.
And, especially, you setting the tone with the drums in the back is great, because you always got a, smirk or smile on your face. And then we get the occasional, at least in Burgundy, where Jake Miller's going to be on vocals too. And your voice is incredible. I was so surprised the first time I heard you. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know Jake could sing. And I love, there's a few songs I enjoy when you sing, but Talking Heads too.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Just so good.
Yeah, I love it. I really do. And if I can be 1% better every day, that's great. I just try to keep growing that way. And yeah, singing and drumming is hard, but I love doing that too. And it's really fun. It really is. That's
incredible. Really good to hear. So, well, Jake, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me today to talk. This was a great way to start out my guest series on the podcast. So I want to thank you again for spending the time with us.
Yeah, thank you. It's been my pleasure. I hope to do it again sometime, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you. How cool is it to hear from someone who is so passionate about their craft. It's just amazing. I truly hope my listeners feel the same way about something in their own lives, the way that Jake feels about music. A few places to find Jake. As mentioned, he's in Burgundy Ties Band. That is burgundytiesband.com. You can find them on Facebook. Wapatui, Wapatui. You can find them on their website, wapatui.online, as well as on Facebook. The Plainsmen, their website is facebook.com/theplainsmen. And of course, the passion project from Jake, Pour for Life, acrylic pour painted drum heads. Those proceeds go to the MS organization. You can find Jake and Pour for Life on Facebook and Instagram. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to hit subscribe, share with your friends on your socials, give us a rating, and tune in next time. Be well.